and welcome to Drive-In Double Feature Podcast. I'm Nathan.
I'm Mr. Hyde.
Oh my god! As soon as I saw the look on your face, I thought you were excited. But yes, you are my evil half. I will take that.
Just like, the movie, it's not Dr. Jekyll, it's Mr. Jekyll, and you're Mr.
Yes.
Nathan.
But this is the podcast where we talk about 2 movies a week every Tuesday and Thursday. But before we get into today's movie, I want to talk to you about our Patreon. Over at patreon.com/drive-in double feature podcast, we upload a bonus episodes, and just for $5 a month, you get access to those, and no main content is locked behind there. But today we are talking about, well, if you couldn't have already guessed from Ryan's intro, we're talking about Dr. Jekyll, or as should I say, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. It's crazy. I need my James Rolfe moment where I'm like, did you know his name is actually Dr. Jekyll?
Well, I read that I think this is the only audio adaptation or where they actually say Jekyll. It's
Really?
like, because I think in the Spencer Tracy one, they do say Jekyll.
That's interesting because I own this movie, and on my Blu-ray copy, they have the radio version of this movie, but it was made 20 years later, and they still got back. They got back Fredric March, and they say Jekyll in that production. So I don't know. It's weird, and that's after the Spencer Tracy one. But yeah, I mean, everybody says Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and that's what I would say. And I don't know. Did you read anywhere if it was confirmed how to say it?
The only thing I saw was this is like the only movie where they say Jekyll. What were they thinking?
Again, I mean, like it's fun. I forgot that they said Jekyll because I've seen this movie before, and I forgot that they said Dr. Jekyll, and it kind of took me back for a second. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. They say Jekyll in this one.
Were you just like, who the hell are they talking about?
I was fuming. I was writing a letter to somebody, but I realized that everybody...
Robert Louis Stevenson.
Yeah, to his estate, his great granddaughter. I was writing an angry letter, and to Fredric March's granddaughter as well. Whoever is still alive in these families.
Does he still have a granddaughter? Did you research that just for that joke?
No, I didn't. No, this joke went way further than I expected. But no, we are talking about Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, and there is a lot of movie versions of this short story by Robert Louis Stevenson. But we are talking about the 1931 Pre-Code movie. I think we've talked about Pre-Code here before the Hays Code came into effect. Talkie movies were a little more raunchy, a little more edgy before this code came out, saying, hey, you can't have like references to sex, and you can't have crazy amount of violence in your movies. So this is kind of like a little weird era, and this movie is Oscar caliber, so please, no hate towards this movie. Remember that. Fredric March did win a Best Actor, but in a fun fact, it's the only time a Best Actor has tied, which is interesting. God,
it's Wallace Beery for the champ.
Yeah,
that
for
was
the champ.
The other.
Yeah,
So when you say that fact, it does sound like, oh, wow. But it becomes less impressive when you actually look at the nominees. There was only 3 nominees that year. So it's like, Matt, you're the one guy that didn't win.
Yeah. Do you know who the other guy was?
I can't remember, but
yeah, that's funny.
It was, but it's just like, oh.
They gave it to 2 people out of 3. That's kind of messed up.
Yeah. I thought about, because I was trying to think, it's like they did it for this movie, these 2 movies this year, and then I want to say a couple years later for Barbara Streisand and Funny Girl.
Yep. Yeah.
And Katharine Hepburn for A Lion in Winter. It's like
Yeah.
they both won and they both tied. So I was just thinking like if that happened today, like people would lose their minds.
Oh
If
yeah. Uh,
like
I
like
would
can you
I would
imagine
be angry.
like imagine if like the year when uh like the year when everyone got mad that Anthony Hopkins won over Chadwick Boseman. Like, can you
Yeah.
imagine if like both or like if like two actors won and not Chadwick Boseman? Like,
That's like extra like salt in the wound.
so, but I just I thought of that fact and it's just like why like people would be so angry if that happened.
Yeah, exactly. And I think those are the only time because I did look at the history of Oscar ties, a few documentary shorts and regular documentaries have tied before. And then the most recent was for sound editing. Um, God, I know one of them Zero Dark 30 and Skyfall. Zero Dark and 30 and Skyfall tied for best sound editing.
Oh,
So
really? Oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah. So, but what's interesting about the Fredric March win is supposedly the rumor is that he actually won, but just by one vote. But they still gave it to both of them. So he's the real winner here.
Did you see the champ?
I no, I've never seen the champ. Have you?
I have, yeah.
Which is better,
This I'd say Dr. Jekyll.
Dr. Jekyll? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
But we can get into the movie. I mean, if you, this is one of those stories that like I don't know everybody knows. It's just this scientist who thinks that every man has a bad, evil side, and then there's a good side, and he goes and experiments to bring out his evil side, and his evil side happens to be Mr. Hyde. I personally, I've seen this movie before, like I said, and I really like this movie, not mainly for content. I think this movie looks like crazy cool for its time. For 1931, the cinematography in this movie, even right off the bat, I think is awesome for its time. A lot of camera movement, which you didn't see a lot in early sound movies. It's a really nice to look at movie.
Yeah, there's all these weird POV shots too.
Yeah.
And there's always just the effects that they did. Like I was reading how they did the transformation scenes
Mm-hmm.
when Dr. Jekyll transformed into Mr. Hyde. They were saying that they would have different makeup on him and just put different colored filters on the lens so that
Mm-hmm.
way it would show different effects. So like they didn't have to do any changes. They would just swap out colors.
Yeah, which I think that's really like ingenious thinking, like how can we make this work kind of deal. And you can see that there's a lot of mirror shots in this movie, like a lot of POV, and they look in a mirror. And I mean, nowadays you can tell it's just some guy. It's the lead actor standing on the other side of just an open wall. But like to see it then, I'm sure it was really cool. Like, oh, I'm looking in a mirror and there's no camera in the mirror. It's a fun touch. But yeah, that opening shot of the long tracking shot of him in POV walking around, it's kind of unnecessary. I don't know what it quite brings to the movie, but it's neat anyway.
I was wondering why they did that, and because they do that multiple
Mm-hmm.
times. So I was trying to figure out like is that supposed to be like Hyde residing in him, and Hyde is seeing all this stuff, or
That's a good way to look at it. I like that. I could see that. That might be the best way to put it. Okay, you enlightened me. You opened my eyes. I just thought it was stylish.
could be, but
No, but I think that's a good way to look into it. But of course, he has his big speech in front of everybody, and the reason I bring up this scene because it has one of my favorite lines in the movie. Everybody's getting out of the class. Everyone's like, "Oh, that Doctor Jack or Doctor Jekyll, he's amazing." And somebody says he can split me in half like a jolly amoeba.
hmm.
I heard that line, and I was like, "Huh, that's a little weird."
Yeah, in a different context, yeah, that would be there's it could be taken in very different directions, but
Yeah, I liked it. I liked
yeah,
it.
I this is actually like they think the first full adaptation I've seen. I mean, I know of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, but I don't think I actually knew the full story of it.
Okay, yeah.
And I didn't realize that the whole movie is just the guy couldn't keep it in his pants for 8 months.
Yeah, pretty much, right? That's what's so funny about it is like it's he has a wife, or not a wife. He has somebody who he wants to be his wife, but his dad keeps saying no, you have to wait. And yeah, he's just so horny and tempted by other, like this one woman who is a prostitute. And this is probably the most pre-code part of the movie, is the whole scene where Dr. Jekyll saves her after she was strangled, right? And she strips in front of him, and nothing is shown except for her legs, but it's, risque for 1931.
Yeah, I mean, you could see her bare back and everything. Like it's clearly like just like a blanket covering her. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, but yeah, it's uh, she kisses him because she was being attacked in the street, and he takes
Mm-hmm.
her upstairs, and he's a doctor, and he's like looking after her, and she just starts kissing him, and he's not putting up a fight at all, like
No,
just,
no.
and then he's just like, oh well, I gotta go, type of thing. Like, don't, like, how dare you? And but he clearly very much enjoyed it, but like, because like before that, his fiance, because her father already approves of the marriage, but he's like, I want you guys to be married on the day of me and my wife's anniversary, which is
Mm-hmm.
in 8 months. And he said, I can't. We have to do it now. We have to do it. And just, I don't understand what the hurry is.
I don't know, man. It's old times, and he's
You
revved up
can't.
and ready.
You're not allowed to have sex unless you're married.
Exactly. Or he's just in love so much he can't wait to be married. Doubt
Yeah,
it. Doubt it. No.
yeah. I'm sure that's the case. But
um,
uh, I, what did you think of Fredric March as Jekyll? Just Jekyll specifically.
as Jekyll, I liked him as Jekyll. I mean, like he's a little unlikable, especially whenever he's like begging and whining to be with this woman. But I think he's a likable guy. I like Fredric March, so I think he does. I think he does a fine job. He's just he can be a little annoying.
You thought he was supposed to be likable? I didn't like him as a character.
Really, really. I don't know. I think he's an interesting character, I guess.
Just I don't. Well, there's later stuff I didn't like that about him
Mm-hmm.
as a character. His performance is great, and
Mm-hmm.
I, but the Hyde part is like the real,
Oh
like,
yeah.
standout moments. That's the part where I'm like, yeah, I'd give this guy an Oscar.
More Oscars for him. I mean, yeah. When he turns in the Hyde, I don't even get how everybody treats him like he's ugly, but like kind of normal. This guy looks like a dog. Like he has like huge like teeth sticking out with fangs. He's got like a grotesque face. There's no color to his face, but it's one of those deals where like in your head you imagine it and he's green, and like I don't know, he's so gross looking, but everyone's just like, oh, he's a nuisance. This
I
guy.
was I kept trying to think of like what he looked like, and then when I was reading what they were going for,
Mm-hmm.
is like the Neanderthal look, like
Yeah.
when you ever see like the evolution of man or whatever
Mm-hmm.
walking, and it's like the one in the middle, and that's kind of what it looks like. It looks between like a cross between like a chimp and a human type of thing.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, it's like humanity has gone back a couple steps. So and he does it well. I mean, I think he's always hopping around, and like his movements are really great. There's a really great scene where he gets mad at the waiter and he trips the waiter down the stairs with his cane. I love that bit. I actually think the transitional scene when he first changes is really cool, especially like once again using camera trickery. You can tell the cuts, but it would show his face, pan down to like his hand, and then as it came up you would notice it would cut, but it would come back up to his head and he would have a little bit more makeup on, and would keep on doing that for a little bit. I thought that was a really nice touch.
I felt like each time they did the transformation, they did like a little slightly or different technique each time.
Yeah, I think the worst one is the final one where it's literally a slideshow of pictures put over each other. That one's a little rough. but you can forgive it a little bit for its
They
time.
should have done. They should have done like a little flip book. Like you just flip it, and then just like he transforms.
Why didn't they just use computers? I don't understand. It would look so
Yeah.
much better.
Did they not have CGI? Where this budget was so low they couldn't afford a computer.
Wow, that's that. I don't like low budget movies. But no, and I mean, yeah, his performance as Jekyll, or sorry, as Mr. Hyde is it's insane, and it's a lot of fun. He does a lot of jumping, running around, and he is actually just horrible. Like it's crazy that because he, what it is Dr. Jekyll there hides his emotions for the street worker, and then as Mr. Hyde, he kidnaps her pretty much. Doesn't like kidnap her in a traditional term, but it's pretty much like just like, hey, you and me, you're stuck with me forever, and I'm going to kill you if you ever leave me.
This is so horrific. Like just like
Yeah.
I mean like they downplay it a lot in this movie, but like just thinking of like what the actual consequences of what he's doing to this woman, where
Mm-hmm.
he's pretty much torturing her, just very like it, it's a, more like a keen now of like having a very abusive significant
Yes.
other
Yeah.
type of thing, where it's just they lock them up in a room, like they're not allowed to go see anybody, and like not allowed to lash out in any sort of way. Their partner's always in fear, and presumably he's sexually assaulting her too. And
Yeah, of course they don't show that, but what they do show, I mean, I was reading that at the time of release, everything was seen how we saw it, but they re-released it a little bit later and they cut out, I want to say like 8 to 10 minutes, something
10
around
minutes,
there.
yeah, there's about 10 minutes cut.
Yeah, and I want to say a lot of these scenes were probably cut because even for now, it's like, dang, this is like really hard to watch, especially when he's like forcing her to sing while he sits on her lap and stuff like that. It is hard to watch.
Yeah, and that was probably that, and probably the scene we talked about earlier with
Yeah.
the kissing. I'm sure that one was excised.
Yes, of
So
course. Yeah. Um, I guess while we're talking about like little things like that, we talked about this earlier, the Spencer Tracy version of this. I guess I read this fact that I thought was absolutely insane that the I think it's MGM, yeah, MGM whenever they put out the Spencer Tracy version, they bought up all of this and the silent movie version of this. And like it would plan to absolutely just destroy them. Like they didn't even exist for the Spencer Tracy version, which is insane. I couldn't even imagine that. I mean, luckily, I believe I'm not sure about the silent one, but this one we can fully watch today, even though it was considered lost for a little bit.
no, I think you can, because I remember I was looking on YouTube. I think the John Barrymore version is on YouTube. You can
Good,
watch it.
good. So they didn't do a good job.
I mean, I bet it was Spencer Tracy's idea.
I bet it was. And I mean, Spencer Tracy supposedly like I have never seen that version. But it said that he didn't do as good of a job, and Fredric March actually sent him a letter saying like, "Oh, thanks for making me look good."
Well, yeah, they said that he was wildly miscast.
Yeah, yeah. I actually really want to see it now just to see how that works out. I'm guessing you've never seen it because you said you haven't
No,
watched any version of this. Yeah.
no. One version I definitely want to see is Dr. Jekyll and Mrs. Hyde.
Mrs. Hyde? Is
You
this
ever heard of that?
no?
Oh, okay. Now there's like I remember seeing a version of it in the 90s. Like I'd go to the movie theater. It's like Tim Daly is Dr. Jekyll, and then but whenever he takes the medicine or the liquid or whatever, he turns into a woman.
Oh my
Uh,
god.
and it's played by Sean Young.
What? Okay, I'm like it's like I'm looking this up. Does anybody remember that? Yeah, Sean Young. Oh boy. Is there a reason I've never heard of this movie? Oh yeah, it made 3 million on an $8 million budget. Now,
Fantastic.
now that is one we do have to watch one day. It is on Laserdisc, so go out and buy them.
Yeah, I'm sure it's sitting on a shelf somewhere.
I'm sure. Razzie nominated movie too, which is a little bit better than
Well, that sounds right up her alley. But
it
anyway,
really is.
I going back to what we were talking about. I the prostitute character Ivy. I actually thought she did a really great job in this movie too. Like I thought, she just looked absolutely terrified to be with Mr. Hyde like all the
Yeah.
time, and just was like like there's a scene where her landlady comes knocking at the door,
Mm-hmm.
and she literally just jumps up out of her chair, just like just thinking it's gonna be Hyde at the door,
Mm-hmm.
but if it turns out it was her landlady, and she just like, okay, I can breathe, type of thing.
Yeah, yeah, and then they talk about him, and you can tell it's just like the last thing she wants to talk about. And one thing I love her nasty English accent. She has like the grossest English accent. Like it is, I don't know. I at first when I that first scene where she's trying to seduce Dr. Jekyll, I was like, okay, this is a little cheesy, But you're right. That character, once she gets into that situation, I think those are the scenes I remember the most. Those are like the best scenes because just the look of horror on her face. And I mean, he even says the line, "I'll show you horror." It really is fantastic. That's like where it really shines.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, the restaurant scene or like the
Mhm.
bar scene where he goes in there and intimidates her, and
Mhm.
he ends up beating up a bunch of guys, ends up beating up the waiter, and
Mhm.
like that scene, and then just the general scenes where he's just intimidating this poor woman and just like basically saying like, you're mine forever type of thing. And
Yeah.
but I do like little scenes like when he first comes out and he jumps into the rain. He doesn't have like an umbrella or anything. He just kind of relishes like being in the rain. He's got his mouth open. He's like,
Yeah, it's such a long scene of him with his mouth open going, ah, and he does it like 3 times.
I don't know, that stuff I remember like so vividly.
Yeah, no, I get that. And no, and that's what I remember too. I remember a lot of just like his movements or him messing around with his cane. At the very end of the movie, there's like a scene where he jumps up a bookcase, and I think that that part I remember a lot because that is insane to see too. This whole rest of the movie is kind of him juggling between both personalities, but you can tell that Dr. Jekyll there is just not taking it well. He starts to become like unwell. His hair is unkept, but he does get her to marry him. He does coax the dad into actually getting them both married.
They do go through with the marriage, right?
Yeah,
Do they?
I thought
Okay.
so. Yeah, because like I remember there's that scene where she's like, "Please, daddy." All she says is like, "Please," and then he's like, "Okay, it's fine then. I see that you want to do it."
Well, yeah, he agreed to it, but I didn't think they actually had the ceremony. I thought they were just having like a
No,
little
no,
part.
no, no. Sorry, they didn't have the ceremony.
Oh, okay. I was thinking
Yeah,
like, that is a wedding scene, but
you watch the cut edited version.
yeah, apparently. But no, yeah, you're right. They do eventually agree.
Yes, yeah, but of course things go a little crazy because he becomes addicted to this evil personality of his, and it ends with a really like funny chase scene. It feels like something out of a cartoon, which of course wouldn't be a cliche at the time of the police chasing him down, chasing Mr. Hyde down. And then I love when they get to the laboratories and um Dr. Jekyll there is just like, oh no, he went that way. Mr. Hyde went that way. It's just silly.
Yeah, they're like, yeah, they eventually put two and two together that
Of
they're the
course.
same guy. But uh, I do want to mention too the other scenes like leading up to that was
Hmm.
when he stops becoming Hyde and he goes back to being Jekyll. I guess he does have a memory of what he did as Hyde,
Hmm.
and because this is the part I did not like. He's just like, we put this girl through all this terrible, torturous behavior, and he's just like, well, I'll send her $50.
And he sends it under his name too, which I don't understand. He could have sent it anonymously, but of course now it makes this connection. I mean, she connects it because she's like, oh, only he would know this, and why would he tell? Why would Dr. Jekyll tell Mr. Hyde this? She kind of starts to piece things together, but
Well, yeah, because Dr. Jekyll, excuse me, he
yeah, come
says
on.
he says something about I forget, like he says like a really specific line, and then Mr. Hyde says it, and she's like, "Oh no," type of thing.
Mm.
And but yeah, but I just was just like, you put this poor girl, and they're just like, "I'll just send her some money."
Here you go. This will
I,
take care of it.
I mean, okay, granted, £50 was, I guess, a lot in the
In the 1800s,
1800s.
yeah.
So
Um,
it's probably a lot, but still, I'm just like,
and
that's
at
kind.
that point, he didn't. He said he wouldn't do it, but I'm pretty sure he still intended to change over to him. So it was like, here's money, but I'm gonna come back as Mr. Hyde just to let you
Yeah,
know.
yeah. He knew what he was going to do.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah. It made me want to read the book. I wonder how the book is. I mean, of course, movies always better than the book, but I'll have to find out.
Maybe that's not true.
What
Maybe the movie will be better this time.
exactly? Who knows? I think I've only read one book for movie here, and I think I like the movie better. And that
Oh,
was,
Drive.
oh no, that's two. The James Bond Thunderball,
Uh,
not Thunderball.
uh,
Which one did I read? No, I read Thunderball. Yeah, yeah.
how could you forget Drive?
Oh, I know, the masterpiece. Um,
But but no, I will say, I think this is the role that everyone kind of envisions when they think of
mhm,
Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, like a role like this. Because I mean, Frederick March is just so good in this role, and
mhm.
I don't think, like, to me, it's like just as good as any of the other Universal monster movies. Maybe not
Yeah,
quite as iconic, but in terms of quality, it's uh it's just as good in my opinion. I mean, it's just there's so many unique camera angles that they use and techniques that it makes it really interesting. I mean, it's super easy watch,
oh
and
yeah.
just like I said, it's just really nice diabolical role where you kind of get to see like him going off the rails.
Yeah, exactly. No, and that's why I like it. I know it's not as popular as like the Universal horror, but to me, I think it deserves it. I think it's an underrated like horror movie of the era. Like you said, Frederick March is great, and I really think whenever he's Mr. Hyde, it really works. It's up there with like Boris Karloff, like as Frankenstein, in my opinion, as terms of like quality, not of course in how iconic it is. Yeah, and like it's an easy watch. I think this is one that you should check out if you really like classic horror movies. Haven't seen this version, you should watch it. It's really good.
You mean Boris Karloff as the monster? Because the monster is not called Frankenstein; it's called Frankenstein's monster.
In my head canon, no, that's wrong. So in my fan fiction I wrote, his name is Frankenstein. So
Yeah, calm Frank.
yeah, Frankie. But yeah, I think that's a recommendation for both of us.
Definitely.
But Ryan, what are we going to be talking about next week? Or should I say Ryan's monster?
Well, Nathan, before I get into the movie, I just have something to say. The test results came back. It says it's sick. I'm sick.
That's what it says. Like it's like a stick and it says I'm sick on it.
Yeah, it says sick right
Oh
there.
no, we're gonna have to record these new meetings over the internet. How are we gonna survive?
Well, Nathan, let's quarantine together on Thursday
Mm-hmm.
when we're going to be talking about a newer movie, 2022's Sick, and that is
Sick.
over on Peacock. Yeah, a movie that was made after the podcast started.
That's actually kind of crazy to think. Um, All right. Well, if you are excited to get sick with us, you can email us at driveanddoublefuturepodcast@gmail.com. You can also X at us at DIDFpod. But until next time.
Until next time.